Like let's just hit the high points. Like, why should people care? If I created something, I wrote it, I'm selling my book, why should I care if it's copyrighted or not? I know that seems like an obvious question, but kind of hit those points. Like, why does it really matter?
You should care if, number one, you care about getting credit. Number two, if you care about getting paid. Number three, if you're going to be upset because somebody else got credit and got paid off of something that you created. And so
there's the big one. There's the big one.
On to number three, right? Because there are certain people out there that will say, was it copying, is a form of flattery. It's not that big of a deal. I created the shirt. She made a shirt just like it. Oh, that was cute. But then when she sells, millions of that shirt, and she sells that shirt to Target, and now they have a national brand off of something that you created as a hobby, and now you care.
Are you tired of working more for less profits in your home service business? What if I could show you $100,000 in hidden annual profits in your business in less than 3 minutes? Would you be interested? And not only show you where, but how to create that 100K in 6 months or less without additional advertising or marketing spend guaranteed. Just go to sharpenthespearcoaching.com to see how truly simple it is. That's sharpenthespearcoaching.com. Do it now.
And welcome back to STS Sharpen the Spear podcast. Great to be here again. Great to have everyone here. I've got another spectacular guest. I've got Karin Coger with us. And I'm looking forward to this interview because I've been waiting a while, and it's exciting to get to it. But as we always do, no one knows Karin better than Karin. So Karin, say hello to the audience, give us a little backstory, bring us up to speed, and we'll get into our discussion.
Hello, everybody. As stated, my name is Karin Coger. I am a trademark and business attorney located right now in Maryland. So with that being said, I've been an attorney for over 22 years, and it is my passion and my love to help people grow and maintain their businesses using intellectual property. So I primarily focus on trademark and copyright law. So by way of background, like I said, I've been practicing for over 22 years, but a majority of my practice was in litigation. So when you think of those courtroom attorneys that you see on Law and Order or Suits, that was me. But that got pretty trying. And what I found is that I love to help people grow their businesses. And this is a way that I could do so, keeping my sanity as well as helping others.
Oh, I love it. I love it. That's great. So this is going to be an interesting topic because in business, again, and we'll touch on all this, of course, trademarks, copyrights, things like that it can be a very integral part of business and actually protecting your intellectual property and what have you, right? So I didn't know about this long ago. I started learning because I was a writer. And I started, copyright stuff and things like that. But when I really got into business and started learning this and the protective measures, this stuff help businesses with, it was really interesting. So that's why I'm excited to have you on here, because it's not like I have trademark attorneys lined up to talk to me. Okay. So I think we're going to hit some great stuff. So let's start from the beginning. If you're going to work with a business, what are they bringing to you from a copyright or trademark standpoint? I know they're very different. Maybe we'll do the definitions of those two as well, but kind of where do they begin that process?
Sure. Well, we'll start with the definitions. I tell people that trademarks protect your brand, copyrights protect your content. If you keep it that simple, it will help you keep them separate in your mind, because a lot of people do confuse them. So, with trademarks, you think of logos, you think of symbols, you think of Starbucks and Nike. What are the things that people look at that identify your brand, right? And then copyright protects your books, your writings, your recordings, your podcasts. And so that's where I wanted to get started. So what is your next question after that?
So when you work with a business, what are they bringing to you initially? Do they have an idea like, hey, I have this brand, I need to protect it? Like, what's the process? Is that kind of where they begin?
So what they do is they come to me with their idea, and they do want to go and set up their LLC, and they want to set up their, bank accounts, and they want to get their business started. And I say, well, what about your trademark for your brand? And they say, well, let's think about that later. And that is the number one wrong thing to do. You need to be thinking about the trademark from your brand from the very beginning, even before you start your LLC. And the reason for this is there's a number of reasons. Number one, you want to do your research and make sure you're not infringing upon somebody else's brand. A lot of us have, great ideas that we think are novel, but ideas come from different places, right? You might have seen something on the billboard or on TV, or you think it just popped to you, in a dream, and you think it's so novel and nobody else has it. And another thing people will do, they will set up their domain name, right? But they won't do the trademark search in the beginning. So you should actually do your trademark search in the beginning when you're thinking of naming your company, when you're thinking about the domain name, to see whether it's available first. Okay. And then the next step is to file the trademark for that brand. Now, you do not have to already be using your brand or your mark or your logo before you file the trademark for it. There are two separate ways that you can file the application. One, if it's already in use, and two, if you intend to use it. So when you file it at the beginning, you're reserving it and you're stopping other people from using it, even if you're not using it yet.
Love it. So let me ask this, just an extension on that. Does it vary between states, or is this it's a national trademark? Is there things like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Is there borders? Is there borders on a trademark?
Absolutely. So typically, you will want to file with the United States Patent and Trademark Office, which is federal and will give you protection across all 50 states. However, you can file for state trademarks as well. So some people do file for a state trademark because it's cheaper, but it's really only giving you protection in that state. Now, the only place right now where I see it's beneficial to have the state trademark as opposed to the federal trademark is if you are engaged in activity that is not federally legal. So the first thing that comes to mind is cannabis, right? So every state has a different rule when it comes to cannabis, and it's not federally legal yet. So in that case, if you have a product that, contains cannabis or hemp or something in that family, you may want to go ahead and file that state trademark because you more than likely will not get federal protection.
Great distinction. Very good. Because I noticed I've seen some things. So we have a winery near me. Okay. I knew they opened up, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, and they had the cool name. We're in Wisconsin, but this looked like Southern California, right? I mean, this place is beautiful. And, the big arch and the sign, and then it's up and it's like getting ready to open, and then all of a sudden they're taking it down. And I'm like, they changed the name because I guess they took a name of another much more established winery and they got a cease and desist. So they had to change all that. So all that stuff, so they're like, but these are the things we learned about businesses. And to your point, if they had done that search, right, before dropping, and they put millions into this.
Yes.
So don't think this was like, a little kiosk stand or something. This is a major, a major investment. So I just thinking of that when you said that, like that simple thing.
Yes.
And that saved them a lot of time.
Yeah, that's one of the hard stories, I tell because, again, at the beginning of a business, some people are, some people have that start money. Some people are scrambling for it and they're just like, oh, I just don't want to pay for it right now. But you pay for everything else. You pay for your sign and your product and, your inventory and all your marketing, and you don't pay for the trademark protection. And then, one day you get that cease and desist and you may have to change all of that. So it's actually going to cost you more in the end.
Exactly. Another example. So, there's Quick Trips, right? So you got your QTs, you got your KTs. So we have Quick Trip with a K around us. And I'm on the state line of Wisconsin and Illinois, and they're opening one up right across the state line, but there's other Quick Trips in Illinois. So they don't want to, but they're not them. Okay. So instead of going to that battle, they end up calling it Quick Star. Mm-hmm. They literally just changed the name because obviously they did their research. They're not a small operation, great business model, and they just opened up as Quick Star. Everything else is the same. The name is just different on the sign. So they found that was the easiest path, the path of least resistance for them to get that established, and everybody still goes there.
Right.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So from that standpoint, when you've done the search and you look at all this stuff and you get, okay, now I've got it, I've protected my brand, where do they go from there? Now, obviously from a business standpoint, they probably got to build out, the business portion, but where does it end for you? with a business owner. You know what I mean? So you did a search form. Let's say they get you, they involve you.
When you say where does
we're
it
good.
end, what
They
do you
get
mean?
the trademark, right? You take care of that. What's that?
When you say where does it end, what do you mean?
So they do the trademark search. Okay, say it's good. You're then going to get the trademark for them, right? So you finalize it. Do you continue the relationship with the business from that point on?
If they would like to. So it depends on how you set up every attorney is different, so it depends on how you set up with your attorney. And one thing that I like to do with clients is do an IP audit in the beginning. We go over all of the assets that you have, what you're using already, and what you plan to use in the future, right? So let's say you have your business and it's an apparel business. You're going to want to use, a certain logo for your brand, for your apparel. But let's say you have different logos that you want on different shirts. Well, you might need to trademark or copyright those as well. Let's say you're putting out literature for your business that's proprietary to you. If you're putting out books, you're going to need to copyright that book. So we'll go through what your plan is and how you are going to attack it. And you don't necessarily need to do everything all at once, but you do want to plan for it, in the future.
I love that because I'm a strategy guy. So strategy is good. So that's a really good doing that audit, as you said. I think that's awesome because very seldom are you one and done in business. So there's always and now you go from the trademark to the copyright stuff and everything else. So that's really good. So the reason I'm asking, Karin, is because for me, business is relationship. Mm-hmm. Okay, no matter who, whether it's clients, customers, attorneys, right? Suppliers, vendors, everything's about relationships. So when I engage someone to do work for my business, someone such as you, I want to understand your full offerings, right? Like how can we work together in the future? What should I expect from this? And that's why I'm asking the question. So people understand that most people don't do just one thing, right? It's an arena that they operate in. It's important to know that because if you did a great job with the trademark, you're probably going to do a great job with the other stuff. So we're, because I talk about a lot of that with accountants. Over my years in business, I've been through a number of accountants. I've outgrown some, right? Business gets too big and it's not really their wheelhouse anymore and things like that, or they don't offer tax strategy. I need more strategy instead of just accounting per se. So that's why I kind of touched on that. So let's kind of continue. Let's get into the copyright aspect. Is that kind of what we got next?
I'm sorry, there's a little bit of a lag on my end, so I missed your last question.
Let's get into the copyright aspect. So when we're moving into that, let's talk a little bit about, we know kind of what copyrights are for, but let's do some application of this.
Okay, so it depends on what you want to copyright. So I'll start with a regular business. Okay, let's say you have a business plan that is special to you. Think, it's different than anybody else's business plan, but it's also something that you're going to go out there and share with the world, right? So you're going to want to copyright that plan. You're also going to have contracts that go along with this, such as NDAs. So if you are sharing this with other people, you have that extra layer of protection stating that, I've shared this information to you, but it is not for you to share with other people. Again, it depends on the type of business. So if you're in a photography business, you want to copyright your photographs. Some people, I'm going to back up a little bit. So when it comes to copyright, essentially, as soon as you put something in a tangible form, you write it, you record it, you draw it, you have the copyright and you are the copyright owner. However, if you want protection from the court, if you are infringed upon, you do need to take the extra step and register it with the Copyright Office. So there are certain works that you can do group copyright for. So for instance, photographers, I think you can copyright up to like 750 photos. So you can copyright for photos that are unpublished as well as photos that are published already. All right. If you have a website or a blog, you can, copyright that. And you want to keep these, up to date. if you have certain podcast episodes that you especially want to protect, you might have an amazing interviewee and you want to make sure that nobody is just out there stealing clips, from your podcast. You want to go ahead and copyright those episodes. So that is a part of the strategic plan. And where I see this a lot and where it's coming up a lot now in the age of social media and content creation, content creators are putting out stuff every day, but they're not protecting it. And then you'll hear online, oh, so-and-so stole my reel, my blog, my idea. You can't copyright an idea though, but there are other steps that you can take to protect yourself.
Yeah, I think when you talk about that, oftentimes the copywriting is a really good thing, but does it not also come down to the power of enforcement?
Yes.
I mean, obviously you don't have a copyright, you're out.
Right.
But when we have it, because I learned all that as well back in the day. It's like, well, yeah, you got a copyright, but what are you going to do? People, there's some bold people out there, let's just say that they'll, well, what are you going to do about it? Because they understand the costs involved and everything else. So a lot of times these things, NDAs especially, because we'll do it in the coaching arena. So we have programs, we have systems. So you don't want someone to copy that, right? So we have NDAs, we have non-competes, things like that, right, for periods of time and stuff. We'll see that a lot in business. Yeah, maybe touch on that a little bit too. Like is that part of what you do? I know you have a lot of experience in litigation, but is that part of your offering? Would you go to bat for them as far as enforcement?
Yes. And especially because I just joined a new firm called Omnis Law, which is a firm across all 50 states and international. We have more resources for that because sometimes that is a lot for a solo, which I was. So when we booked this call, I was a solo. It can be a lot for one person to handle. However, there are services that you can register for either as a layperson or using an attorney. And of course, I usually suggest that you use an attorney. Or you can go and you can register your work. So, for instance, you have people who are selling on Etsy. And let's say, Disney is notoriously litigious. So let's say you make a shirt with a Disney character on it. More likely than not, you're going to get a cease and desist letter, pretty quickly. And Etsy will shut not just down that listing, but will shut down your store. So there are services out there that monitor this on behalf of the copyright owner.
Right. Right. Yeah. There's been Super Bowls, the same thing. You'll see commercial, you can't even say that word.
Right.
You have to call it the big game.
Right.
On your bar window, you got to say the big game.
Right. But it depends on, like I said, how litigious, people are. And, contracts can control a lot of things. So give me the example again of the quick trip that you had, the two.
Right. Yeah. So they cross state lines right there in another state.
Right.
And there was already a quick trip there of a different ownership, right? Same spelling, everything else. So they went with Quick Star. They just changed the name. Branding, right. Everything else was basically identical.
Mm-hmm.
It just was KWIK Star instead of Trip.
Right. So there are certain things like that. For instance, yes, they did change it, but there are other things that may have happened on the back end. There could have been an agreement between the two of them. Not just, hey, I just changed my trademark, so my trademark is different. The agreement, there is something called a geographical consideration. I'm talking about trademarks now, where they say, as long as you use Quick Star and you're only using it in that state and you don't come over to my state, I will leave you alone. Those are other things that attorneys, can work out for you.
Oh, that's good to know. I didn't even think about the negotiation part. That's actually really interesting to be able to do that because it only, now that you mention it, it seems kind of natural that you do something like that. But that's really good. So there's always options. So if you're going into something, because again, the Quick Trip on the Wisconsin side is a very established brand, right? Very established all over the place. So I would imagine that to gain additional market share, there are a lot of different levers they can pull to make that happen. And it would take someone of your caliber to be maybe negotiating that as well. Is that something you would do as well?
Yes, and that comes up in the search that I tell you to do at the very beginning. So, for instance, I had a client who had a brand, and it used some version of Entrepreneur in it, all right? It had nothing to do with Entrepreneur Magazine. But what we discovered through the search is that Entrepreneur Magazine is very litigious. So even though on the onset, when we did that search, just like, you know what, there's no way they're going to think this has anything to do with Entrepreneur Magazine. But in that research, it showed that they are, and they will come after everybody. And with all that power and all that money behind Entrepreneur Magazine, do you really want to enter that arena? So if you have a brand like that is litigious and they do aggressively fight to keep their brand, it's like, do you even want to come close to that? Versus in that search, you might see somebody has something that's similar, but they haven't used it in 4 years. So you might run the risk of, hey, I'm going to go ahead and start using it because it doesn't look like they're using it. And it doesn't look like they're going to come after me if I do.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So it really is the power in that search to really understand what you're looking at, what you're looking for, and then diving into it if you do find it to really examine where they're at in the marketplace. Right. So like you said, it's easier to develop a new brand or logo, whatever that might be, than go up against the giant.
Yeah.
Who's gonna drain you of even if you win, you end up probably drained of every bit of capital you have just to win that and have to start over. So it's probably wise to do that process in the beginning.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good stuff. So copyright. So I have a couple books out. I have copyrights. Is it IBSN? Is that part of the copyright? And that's the registration. There's a registration for the book, right? And you do all that stuff. So I did it all. I don't remember I just know I had to do it. So all that stuff. But books are a big thing. I didn't do it with an ebook or anything like that, but I've done it with books I've written because I understand the importance of that. Websites, same thing. You have copyrights on those and things like you had mentioned. And it's interesting once you become aware of this stuff, how you start to see it. It's the RAS in the brain, a reticular activating system. All of a sudden, copyright, you'll start seeing everything copyrighted. The little C with the circle or the TM, you start seeing that kind of stuff, I had some friends in business did that too. He goes, hey, look, I got trademarks. And they had this really cool name and stuff, and it was neat to see that they actually went there. And I think it took them, let's talk about that real quick. What's the time frame on something like that, Karin? When you're going to file for a trademark and you actually get it, whatever it is, certified or whatever you would call it, what's the time frame on that?
So right now it's taking about 12 to 18 months. What happened was during the pandemic, so many people started their own businesses because, they were shut out of their regular 9-to-5. So those applications increased in volumes. And what I tell people is anything that you write, anything that you create, you can put the C on there. Again, if you really want to protect it, you take the extra step and you register it. The same thing with a brand. With your brand, you can go ahead and you can put your TM on there. And that's a symbol to the world. Hey, I'm protecting this brand, but it's not officially registered until you get that registration certificate, and then you can graduate and use the circle R. So the circle R means that it is officially registered. Some people use it when they're not supposed to, but again, that's when you want to go ahead and do the search and double check.
Right. You know what? You make an interesting point there too, because a lot of people would buy domains, right? People have I know Digital Marketer, they're out of Texas, Austin, I think. They have a portfolio of domain names.
Yes.
Millions of dollars worth, right? Because sewing.com. They bought sewing.com.
Right.
That's that's a name, so that's worth a lot of money. So it's the same thing if you just throw that TM on or whatever, someone might see it and like it, and they might actually go get the official one and take it away because they see the value of it. And if you didn't do that legwork to make it official, that can get taken out from underneath you. And they can actually now own that, and you'll end up getting the cease and desist, right?
Right. But I will want to add, though, when it comes to that, it's not that simple in the U.S. So in the U.S. is the first to use country versus China is a first to file country. So you may hear about a lot of Chinese, trademark filing. So if you're the first one to fill out that application, you're the one that's going to get it. But in the U.S., if somebody has it and they're sitting on it, it's dormant, but you're actually using it and they have not filed for the trademark for it, and you go ahead and they want to fight you for it, there will be a fight to show, who actually used it.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, that's good. I guess that's good. Maybe for both sides. It gives some options, but that's good.
I'm just trying to strategy.
Right. I'm just trying to figure out the navigation of this stuff for people so that, we obviously want to do it the right way the first time. That's the ideal way of doing things, right? And it's the same thing when it comes down to like incorporation. I think a lot of people, they'll get their basic incorporation, whether it's an S Corp or whatever it might be, or an LLC, and they'll do that quick, simple state filing, which is good. I'm not saying it's wrong. They have something, but I always tell them as they develop their businesses to go relook at that because it may not be providing the protection your business actually needs. So it's always good to get with experts, people like you from the trademark copyright standpoint, to talk to someone like that to really analyze what you actually have. So in the case you have, liabilities, you have lawsuits, whatever that is, you're actually protected by that corporate veil, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. So what would be another thing to be looking out for in the way of trademark and copyright stuff that people may not be thinking of that can pop up?
So right now, AI is everywhere. Well, I at least think it's everywhere and think that it's, very prevalent. And so both the trademark or the USPTO, the United States Patent and Trademark Office, as well as the U.S. Copyright Office have issued some directives as to how you can and cannot use AI. So, for instance, in the advent of ChatGPT, there are people that are knocking out books every day that are 100%, AI created, and they want to go ahead and file that and try to copyright that. The Copyright Office has said that what you're filing needs to have substantial human addition to it, right? So to put it simply, if you want to copyright your book and you used AI, at least 51% of that book needs to be original that came from you or a human author. When it comes to images, these systems, these large language models are being trained on works that are both in the public domain and have already been copyrighted. So if you might go on there and go on the Midjourney and create what you think is an original image, but the computer or the AI is pulling from somebody else's image. So even though you think you came up with this amazing prompt and you came up with this incredible image, that might not pass muster when you try to register the trademark for it or the copyright for it.
I'm glad you brought this up because I have a client, I think she used a picture on her website for a month or something. No copyright, no nothing on it, not a watermark, nothing. Then she gets this, lawsuit, $120,000. She didn't even do anything on the website. And I'm like, well, is this just AI? Some attorney turns AI on to go search all this stuff that's out there, suing people all over the place, right? And well, that's a lot. That's a lot. It's hard to say, well, if they found this in the public domain, there isn't a copyright, no watermark, and it's just an odd thing. But go ahead with that. Then I'll give a follow-up question because
I was going to say that's not necessarily AI. Just a few minutes ago, I was telling you that there are companies that do that. So if you have a work, you can register it with those companies and it will do the search for you online to find out if somebody else is doing that. Because a lot of times what happens is people just hop on Google, take an image, if it doesn't have a watermark across it, they just use it. But what you have to recognize is if you did not create the image, it does not belong to you, right? So this is where a lot of celebrities get in trouble because they might see an image of themselves online that was taken by a photographer and they're like, this is a cute pic of me. And they post it on Instagram. Well, then that celebrity is getting hit with a cease and desist as well as, a letter for damages stating, you stole my image. And they're like, but it's me. Well, you didn't take it, so it doesn't belong to you.
Yeah, good point. It's so complicated. How do they verify if I write a book that's actually a 51% human creation? I know they can pretty much do anything, but really that would seem to be a complicated, difficult task to prove.
Well, there are definitely sites out there that will verify works to determine, number one was, it was stolen from somebody else. So it can search the internet to see if this passage was somewhere else in this exact same wording. And again, all of this was being done even before AI, but now that there is AI there, those programs can examine it and it will tell you whether it thinks that this is AI written as opposed to, more human written. So that's happening now, right? For instance, in school with kids, there are certain things that you produce on ChatGPT or Claude or any of these other, models, and you can just look at it and that it's AI, or your students, and it's like you've never written or talked like this before, right? So
Right.
all of a sudden they show up with this, this perfect paper. And it's like, I'm going to raise my eyebrow, at that in general. But there are cases that are being raised right now, again, in schools where the students are saying, well, I didn't use it to write my paper, but I used it to research my paper. Well, what's the school's policy on that? So I always say technology outruns the law. And that's
Right.
really where we are
Right.
when it comes to AI, because it's changing every day.
Yeah, I think I call it, people, when this all, just in the last couple of years, especially since it's picking up such speed, I'm like, well, it's the greatest plagiarizer in the world, AI. It gets to take everything that's ever been put in the document and make stuff from it. I said, and I was talking, I did an event and I had a guy who's a publisher, loves publishing, he's into it. He's like, he basically can't do anything right now because he's getting all this, legit or not, he's getting this copyright infringement or doesn't know what to do, that the laws haven't been established yet
Right.
to really combat it. So he doesn't know what to do as a publisher.
Right.
He's like, how can I get this stuff out there and copyright it? So he's kind of in limbo right now
Correct.
till the courts catch up to the technology,
Yes.
which is always a problem, so I wonder if, whether it's 2, 3, 5 years from now, stuff gets flipped on people.
Yeah.
Now AI gets turned on AI. Yeah, very interesting. That's really fascinating. I'm really glad we touched on it because AI is in the very beginning, I'm like, yeah, I'm, total Terminator. This is they'll take over the world. This is going to be all evil. It's AI. It's going to do all this stuff. And then I thought, well, that's everything.
Mhm.
Everything can be used for good or be used for evil. I'm like, what can we do good with it? And let's use that because it's pretty brilliant.
Yes.
My podcasts have an AI component,
Yes.
from creating titles and all, and just generating all it's unbelievable.
Yes. I love it for ideation. Yeah.
It's
love it for-
amazing.
For instance, math was not my subject in school, and I'm a lawyer. I'm not an accountant. So I'm trying to figure out some financials the other day, and I'm like, let me just ask ChatGPT. It would have taken me either hours to figure that out on my own or a whole bunch of money to go to an accountant for it. So it's not, it's not all bad. Or, when I'm trying to figure out what to eat, let me just ask AI, this is what I have in my refrigerator. What can I make? So there's good uses for it. But when it comes down to the law and legality and who owns what, that's where things get a little sticky.
Right. Yeah, it's just, again, these are things you have to be aware of. And that's why I bring guests on like you, because we want to talk about this stuff. So people, at least their eyes are open. They may not know the exact, happenings, how to do it or the repercussions or whatever, but at least we're aware of this kind of stuff. And I think still there's a number, like we just spoke about, a number of protections you can put in place for your work. And I think it's really important, maybe you can address this as well, is when we talk about intellectual property, whether you've written a book, an ebook, or whatever that might be, the importance of protecting that. Why let's just hit the high points. Why should people care? If I created something, I wrote it, I'm selling my book, why should I care if it's copyrighted or not? I know that seems like an obvious question, but kind of hit those points. Why does it really matter?
You should care if, number one, you care about getting credit. Number two, if you care about getting paid. Number three, if you're going to be upset because somebody else got credit and got paid off of something that you created. And so
there's the big one. There's the big one.
Down to number three, right? Because there are certain people out there that will say, was it copying, is a form of flattery. It's not that big of a deal. I created the shirt. She made a shirt just like it. Oh, that was cute. But then when she sells, millions of that shirt, and she sells that shirt to Target, and now they have a national brand off of something that you created as a hobby, now you care.
All you get to do now is wipe your tears.
Exactly.
Because you have no standard. You're exactly right. You're going to get someone who markets a lot better than you do. And they're going to take that. They're going to, like you said, they're going to run with it because they can.
Right. And especially if content is your business, it's important to have a strategy for it. So again, if you write a book, this might not be as difficult for, an author. You come out with your book, you need to trademark the name of the book, you need to copyright your book, you put it out there, you might have some posters or, some advertisement, but it's done. But if you're constantly creating content on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and this is how you make your money, you need to have a plan, to protect it. And that's where I see where these quote unquote content creators, are falling short and end up crying, on the internet that somebody stole my stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I create content. It's interesting that I see people who do this stuff every day, right? They're creating, they're putting stuff out and everything else. And, their content creation exhausts me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I could never, I'm quality over quantity.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do something really great and get it out there and be done. I'm not really good at every day and that kind of stuff. So I'm just kind of being humorous about it. But some people, they got some content. I mean, they're putting out there, they're just going all the time. So yeah, that's quite a thing to think about.
Yeah, those are the people that need a content legal strategy, not just a content creation strategy, but how to protect it. Another thing that you see now is, viral moments, right? If you see a basketball player who says something on the court and it takes off, what will happen is you'll see the next day there'll be, 10 applications at the trademark office because now they want to trademark that phrase that they didn't create. This guy barely even got off the court from saying it, having the chance to even speak with his attorneys to, get this done, but they're all racing, claim to be the owner and prevent somebody else from using it.
Yeah, it's funny you say viral moments because in one of my AI softwares for podcasting, I can create viral moments. It's kind of neat. So it creates them. It's so cool. I mean, you get the little snippet of video that it gives a whole writing about it and everything else. I'm like, that's what I'm telling people. Like, that's a click of a button. And I have 10 viral moments with 2 paragraphs on each one and the video. I'm like, this is astounding.
Yeah.
And I can write a little bit, Karin,
Mm-hmm.
and I look at that and go, never could I write that. It's so perfect and and I just click a button and it's posted to LinkedIn.
Yep.
I click another button that's posted to YouTube. I'm like, this is what I love about it.
Exactly.
And it's that kind of stuff. But yeah, the people who are doing it profusely, of their own stuff. I love that, again, have that legal strategy. What does that actually look like? Because if you don't, you're going to have the tears because everyone has access to everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, there's no protecting this anymore. It's not, it's just what it is. And I think it's been that way forever, whether you're records, tapes, 8 tracks. I don't know, you want to go back on the whole line, 45, whatever it is, there's always been this copyright issue, especially in the music and arts. I mean, I think that was always like a song, like they got lifetime. How long? 50 years later, they still have the copyright on the song. You can't imitate it or whatever. Or they could purchase rights or whatever the thing is, right? So
that's
very
why
interesting.
Music catalogs are selling for billions of dollars.
Wow, yeah. Good point. Holy cow. Yes. Wow, so much in this, such a deep. This is really good. We could probably spend another hour at least talking about copyrights and trademarks, but this has been a really good, we'll call it semi-deep, okay? Because I think it was more than I've learned a ton because I knew pretty much nothing except a few basics. But it's really good just to share this with the audience because I think people having this awareness and understanding where it needs to be in the priorities of their business, right? So of logos and content, things like that, I think is important because what we always do, Karin, from a business standpoint, we're not here to do something for a short period of time. Right. We're here to build something. Even if we sell the business, and this is a good point, if you sell the business and you have a legitimate trademark and copyright on that work, What does that do for the sale of your business? It increases the value.
Exactly.
So your valuation goes up because you have this trademark catalog, the whole thing. So I think it's, again, another great reason why we're talking about this, because I think people need to understand the value of it, right? Because people look at the cost. They always get the cost part.
Yeah.
They don't understand the value.
That's
so
correct.
This is, again, a strategic method. It's a strategic way of thinking for down the road. You may sell that business in 5 or 10 years or 15 or whatever it is, but that adds to the valuation of the business.
Absolutely.
So it's really critical. Good stuff. Okay, I'm glad I was right about that. That's good. Well, Karin, this has been awesome. How can people follow you, get in touch with you, if they want to engage you in their services for this kind of stuff? Where can they go?
They can email me at Karin Coger at Omnis Law. I will make sure you have the correct spelling of that. It's KARINCOGER at Omnis, OMNUS law.com. I'm pretty much Karin Coger, ESQ, on all the socials.
Excellent. Okay, that'll all be in the show notes. Everybody can check that out. But if you're considering a trademark, if you're considering copyright, if you're thinking about, wow, I've created a lot of stuff and there's zero protection on it, it doesn't mean you can't do it still.
That's
right? So we go back and find that stuff and get this, because take this to heart, because, again, just from the valuation aspect of your business, protecting your brand, again, someone else gets it, a use thing. We already went through all that stuff. So it's an important topic. And it's something we need to apply to our business. So, Karin, thank you so much for the time today discussing this topic. This has been a lot of fun. I appreciate you coming on.
It is. Thank you for having me.
You bet. All right. Until next time, everybody, tune in to STS Sharpen the Spear podcast, and we will see you on the next one. And don't forget, revenue feeds the ego, profit feeds the family. So if you want to see how I can show you at least $100,000 in hidden annual profits in less than 3 minutes, and not only show you where, but how to create that 100K in 6 months or less without additional advertising or marketing spend, guaranteed, just go to sharpenthespearcoaching.com. See how truly simple it is. That's sharpenthespearcoaching.com. Do it now.